Hello, everyone.
Morning, everyone.
Thank you for joining. We'll just give everyone a couple of minutes, see who joins, and then we'll just start and people can join after that then. Hello. Nice to see some familiar faces as well and some people returning. Okay, so while we're waiting for people to join, I'll just go through sort of housekeeping and how it's going to work. Well, thank you so much for everyone joining. This is the fourth session in our How to Look for Work and Prioritise Your Wellbeing series. This session will be all around CV writing tips and managing your mental health coping strategies. For this session, everybody, apart from myself and Michael, who are obviously hosting the event, everyone's cameras and microphones are turned off for this. This meeting is recorded, so we can refer back to it later. But like I said, we can't see or hear you. You can use the chat function throughout the call. Also ask questions. We'll go through any questions at the end. If there is, obviously with it being recorded, if there's anything you don't want to ask on the chat, you can always ask questions via email to myself after the session as well. Absolutely fine with that, but we'll have plenty of time to go through questions at the end. I am, for those of you who don't know, I am Gabby. I am the Chief Talent Officer here at Autimatic. So I look after all candidates from registration all the way through to whilst they're working. I'll just let Michael introduce himself before we start.
Yeah, hi everybody. I'm Michael. I'm a job coach at Autimatic and predominantly cover the north of the country, but who do have participants stretching across. Okay, so welcome.
Well, thanks, Michael. So we will get going. Obviously, people can join as they go along. I just need to figure out how to share my PowerPoint correctly.
Sorry, Gabby.
Yeah.
Somebody just said they can't hear any sound. So is that the same for everybody?
Yeah, can anyone else let us know if they can't hear? Or is everyone else okay?
Yeah, some companies say they can hear us both. Okay, all good.
Okay.
So it just looks like there's one that can't hear at the moment.
I'll add him a message in, but it must be something on Tracy's side. Can we see that PowerPoint as well, by the way? Can you see that, Michael, the PowerPoint?
Yeah, I can see it. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, great. Thank you, everyone. Okay. Oh, sorry, I've just got to let a couple of people in that didn't get the link. Okay, right. So everyone can see that. So yeah, we'll start off. As I said, this session's around CV writing tips and managing your mental health coping strategies. And we will start off with my section, which is all about CV writing tips. So just to give everyone a bit of a background, previously, before I worked at Autimatic, I've worked here 2 years now in this role, But I've worked for many years in recruitment, so I have seen many, many, many CV in my time. So this is all just things from obviously seeing lots of CVs and what I've learned along the way. So I thought I'd start off by showing you an example of a CV and the format. I found this really good example on read.co.uk. And yeah, this is just how I would personally lay it out. Very easy to read. So you would start off at the top by writing your name and contact information. Under that, you should have a personal statement. I will go into each of these sections in more detail as well afterwards. But you should write a personal statement. This should just be a short paragraph or a couple of sentences, basically about you. It's a bit of a snapshot, really. Then under that is key skills, usually done just in bullet points. These are skills that you have personally. And again, it's a good way to sell yourself quickly. Employment history is next. Then under that, you would go education. Then you would write a little, again, short paragraph, couple of sentences or bullet points, hobbies and interests. And then right at the bottom is the references section. So personal details. So it might seem quite self-explanatory, but what you should include is your full name, email address. Now we say a professional email address. Now it doesn't need to be, it can be a Hotmail or an Outlook or something like that. What I mean by professional is, it's nothing silly or if got anything offensive or, it might be something that you may have created when you were 14 that's not really very professional. Then you should create a new one. Really, it should just be something like your name, maybe have some numbers in it, something like that at outlook.com. 2 seconds. Is someone having issues? Oh, Louise. Yeah, try leave and come back in. That might work. Next, you would put the city or the county that you live in, just so it shows what location you're in. For example, obviously, if you're applying for an in-person job where you have to go into the office, it needs to be relevant or commutable for you, doesn't it? What you don't need is a photo. So some people put this on the CV, but it's not necessary. It's not a requirement. And again, where you put in the location of where you live, you do not have to put your full address, your full details, your house number or anything like that. And you don't have to put your birthday or your date of birth on there. So next section is personal statement. Like I mentioned, it should be a snapshot of why, of you and why, and it's also selling yourself. So why someone should hire you, really. Now, what we would say is you should try and answer these questions in your personal statement. So who are you? So explain, your experience, any qualifications. So that could be work experience. It could be any voluntary work in there as well. Qualifications, it could be a degree, it could be self-learning qualifications that you've done, any online courses, things like that, anything that's relevant to what you're applying for. You should also mention what are your skills, so any key skills that you have that would be relevant to the role. Next is what value do you bring? So you should explain why hiring you would add value to the company and role. Now, what are your skills and what value do you bring can link together, really. So often your key skills are why someone should hire you, and that is why you're going to add value to the company and the role. So don't think all these need to be separate. They can be linked together, really, in the same sentence. And the last one is what's your goal? What do you want to achieve? You should also do this by expressing interest, in the field that you're applying for. And I've given a couple of examples here of personal statements. So this first example is someone maybe that doesn't have any work experience. So I'll just read it out to you. So enthusiastic individual recently completing a level 3 diploma in business administration. So that first sentence is explaining who you are. Strong understanding of office management principles developed through coursework in document preparation and communication, proficient in Microsoft Office suite and skilled in organising tasks and managing deadlines. So those couple of sentences are talking about what are your skills, and also what would you, like what value do you bring as well. And the last sentence, looking to gain practical experience in an administrative role to further develop skills and contribute to a professional team. So again, that last sentence is answering the last question of what is this person's goal. Example 2. So this is someone with experience. So a talented software developer with 10 plus years experience and track record of devising software solutions across the finance and IT industries. Expertise in developing test harnesses, defining automated test scripts, Python, Perl, Linux, and C/C++, demonstrate strong problem-solving capabilities used to mitigate risk and ensure projects meet deadlines, budgets, and objectives. So there's a couple of ways you could do it, but it's just those are two snapshots that really sell yourself to a company. Now the next section, key skills. So the image on the left hand side is basically just how you lay it out, key skills, and it's literally just bullet points. Now you've got soft skills and hard skills. So soft skills are things that are more interpersonal skills. Hard skills are more specific. They're skills that you can be taught, and they may also be role specific skills as well. So there's just a few examples there. So soft skills are things like critical thinking, attention to detail, problem solving, time management, high accuracy, and organisation. Hard skills are things like customer service, coding. When I put XX software there, that could be a specific software that is used in a certain role or in a certain company that you have, and that's quite specific to the role you're applying for them. Creative writing, data analysis, and languages. So again, if you speak any languages, always put them in there. That might not necessarily be job specific for that particular role, but it is still classed as a hard skill. So for your employment history, now these are just a few points of what you need to do in this section. So you should always list your roles in order from most recent going backwards. So most recent should be at the top of that, so everyone can see your most recent experience straight away when they look at it. You should always include months and dates of employment, not just the year. Now, I've seen this quite a lot in CVs. People will just put the year, and you should always put the month. You don't have to put the specific date, as in the 1st of September, but it does help to sort of see, because it could be any time in the year that you've left one role and joined another. You should include the company's name and location as well. So again, you don't have to put a full address, but it could be, you work for Tesco in Leeds, for example. You should include your job title. So whatever your job title was in the role at that company, you should list accomplishments and responsibilities under each role. Now, with this one, for example, if you'd worked for 20 years and you had lots and lots of different work experience, I wouldn't put so much detail into jobs that were from 20 years ago, or any jobs that are not relevant. So, for example, if you're applying for a software engineering role and you've worked in software for like 3 years, I would put the detail under those roles. Anything, let's say you'd worked in hospitality before that, or retail, you don't need to list all your duties for jobs that are not relevant to what you're applying in. I'd keep it job specific, and also the more recent ones, and if it is job specific but it was ages ago, just keep it to a minimum. Also, you should highlight any achievements. So again, that could be under in the bullet points when you're talking about accomplishments and responsibilities. A good point though is if you feel like you've got lots of different achievements that you want to sort of stand out a bit more, you can also create a highlights, like an achievement section by itself. So for example, if you've won Employee of the Month once or several times, if you've won any awards or been nominated for anything, or you've got higher, let's say you were in sales and you've got the highest sales record, all those things could be, again, like you would list in your key skills section, you could put a section in of highlights or achievements and do it that way. So just to show you an example of how you would write one of the roles. So can you see at the top, we've got September 2005 to March 2012. So that's your dates of employment. Underneath, registered nurse, that's the job title. And then LGI hospital lead. So that's the name of the company as such, and the location. And then underneath, there's a few bullet points just to explain the duties and responsibilities of the role. So education section, similar to how we would do the employment history. It should always be from most recent at the top, going back down, working backwards. You should put the name and the location of the school or college or university, whatever it may be. Course you completed, so it's the title of the course, or the subject, or the degree. The year that you studied or graduated the course. So often people will just put the year that they left, which is fine. Or you may put when you start and finished. And then the grade that you achieved. Now, again, with this, in education, you can put any courses. So again, if the self-learning courses, you can keep adding those into the education section. In terms of putting the grade of everything that you studied, when we go back to maybe like GCSEs, what we often do, which sort of goes against what I'm saying here a little bit, but you don't need to put every single subject with every single individual grade on that, because there's so many. I would put something like 6 A to C GCSEs. I'll show you an example in a second. It's genuinely because if you've gone to college and you've got A levels and then a degree and then other qualifications, GCSEs are not really something that an employer would look at first. So it doesn't need as much detail. So this is an education example. So here at the top, we have got a degree, where they studied, the years that they studied and their final grade. The good thing here as well is they've put some detail underneath the degree. So again, if you've not worked before, and this is the bulk of your experience, really, isn't it? Your education. So, and again, if you're doing a course that's relatable to the role that you're trying to get into, putting bullet points like you would underneath employment history is very useful. Again, that's talking about specific hard skills that they've learned through this degree. Then underneath, they've gone for A levels. And can you see here what I mean about the GCSEs? They've put less information. I would here, though, one thing they haven't done in this section is put the grades. I would just put what grades you've got between, so A to C or A to D, whatever it may be. Hobbies and interest section. People may not think this is important. Not everybody adds this, but it is a way to add a bit of personality into your CV, and it just tells the employer more about you. CVs can be quite formal, and this just says a little bit more about your personality. It may also help, if you do get invited to an interview, it's a way for an employer to maybe connect with you if you've got similar interests, or to sort of break the ice as such a little bit. Maybe make you feel a bit more comfortable by bringing something like this up that's not as formal. So again, hobbies, interests, examples here. So it could be sports, it could be anything to do with wellness, creative practices, outdoor activities, knowledge activities, or craft activities. There's some other examples there underneath each section. And interests could be things like travel, culture, technology, nature, social causes, or academic topics. And lastly, references. So Some people may put the details of the references in there. Some people may just put references available upon request. Either is fine. It's whatever you would prefer to do. If you are going to put the details down, you should put the full name of the person, their job title, and then their contact details, usually an email. Some people put phone numbers in there as well. The reason people may not do this, I've obviously spoke to a lot of people through work that are nervous that if you're in a job and they don't know you're leaving, they may contact that individual before you've handed your notice in or something like that. Technically, they should not do that. Unfortunately, I have come across that before. So if you're worried about anything like that, you can just simply put references available upon request, because they'll always just do that after they've offered you the job anyway. So I've added in the CV again here, just a few sort of key tips for your CV, really. Now, they say on average, there's been a few different articles and studies on this, but they say on average, someone looks at your CV for seconds initially. I've seen some places say 6 seconds, some say up to 30 seconds. So you want it to be eye-catching. You don't want your CV to be messy or not readable. You don't want it to be too long either. Now, we always say the perfect CV should be 1 to 2 pages max. Don't feel like if you've got 1 page, it's not enough. I think some people with less experience or no experience worry that it's 1 page. That is absolutely fine. We've seen people with really lots of experience with 2 pages, and you don't want more than that, because people get bored and will stop reading it, to be quite honest. So we say keep it short and to the point. Make the design simple and easy to read. You should use clear and easy to read font. You should also put it in logical order. That again makes it easy to read. Check for spelling mistakes as well. It just looks more professional if there's no spelling mistakes in it. And always keep it updated. So any extra courses you do, or volunteering, or when you move roles, you should always keep your CV up to date. We'll go through any questions around CVs and things at the end. But for now, I'll pass you over to Michael.
Right. Okay. Right. So the part I'm going to cover is managing your mental health, and coping strategies. Okay. Thanks, Gabby. So, coping strategies for every mind. So, supporting neurodivergent employees. Everyone experiences stress differently, and this session is about finding tools that work for your brain, whether you thrive on structure, creativity, movement, or calm. This is a key thing with coping strategies. It's not one fit for all. It's very, very personal to the individual. Okay, thanks, Gabby. So, understanding neurodiversity. Neurodiversity means brains work in different, equally valid ways, including ADHD, autism, dyslexia, anxiety, and more. These differences bring strengths in focus, innovation, empathy, and problem solving. So the goal is to create a workplace that supports every thinking style. And again, it's acknowledging that people have difficulties in navigating the workplace and the work environment, but completely appreciating that they're an absolute strength and everybody has something to offer. Okay, thanks, Gabby. So, why does well-being matter? So, stress can look and feel different for everyone. For some, it's sensory overload. For others, it's racing thoughts or fatigue. By learning how your brain processes stress, you can choose strategies that help you recharge and perform at your best. So it is about understanding yourself. And the more you can understand yourself, the better prepared you can be and the more resilient you can be in the workplace. Okay, thanks, Gabby. So, personalized coping strategies, mindfulness and sensory regulation. So, try deep breathing, noise cancelling headphones or short sensory breaks. So when you think of sensory regulation, um, environments play a huge part in this. So if there is residual noise going on, or if the heating's noisy, or the lights are buzzing, or there's people talking in the background, it can be very distracting to the point where it becomes overwhelming. And once it becomes overwhelming, or the distraction is so much, it really does impact on work and performance. And that's why it's so important to be very mindful of how environments impact on you. And I guess when you're sort of your home is your working environment, it can be really difficult to regulate that because it's a home. There may be other people, family members living in there who are just getting on with their everyday activities. However, because of the distractions, there's more of a need to be aware, self-aware. So aware of these distractions and say, well, okay, how can I work around this? Do I have a separate work environment? So instead of working in my bedroom, which is also my place of rest, can I work in the kitchen? Can I work in the shed or an outbuilding? But trying to establish a separate working place to the home environment, because when they're mixed in one, it can be very difficult to compartmentalize and separate the worlds. Movement. This could be for people who are hyper or hyposensitivity. So use fidget toys, stretch or walk during breaks. Get yourself away from the workplace. Get yourself away from that workstation and sort of ground, take the break so that you can just catch your breath, capture your thoughts, and then go, you know what, I just need to move around. So as a hypersensitivity, things like ADHD, things like that, you can sort of move around and then your brain is getting the sensory input that it needs. On the opposite scale, if somebody's hypersensitive, then you sort of still need that kind of movement. So either it's hyper or hypersensitivities, movement's really important. It's just the why. So never be afraid to move away from your desk, because nobody expects you to be sitting at that desk all day. Visual focus, use visual schedules or color-coded lists, because it can be really easy to lose the concept of passing time. So if you're sitting doing a task at your workplace, but when you lift your head, you're going, oh my God, hours have flew by, and you don't even know it. That very quickly leads into overperformance and burnout. So having these visual things in place that can sort of help you to manage the work schedule, help you to manage tasks so that you don't feel the need to complete a whole task. So it's about prioritizing them and putting a schedule in place that allows you to complete the task, but doing it in a way that is sort of achievable and sustainable. And then the cognitive tools. So reframe the negative thoughts and celebrate small wins. So when you're in the workplace, it can be really easy to go, you know what, I've done absolute rubbish there. I'm really not happy with how that's happened. Then you're in an emotional state. So what you need to do is sort of move away from the emotion and then take the step back and self-reflect. Self-reflection allows you to look at the good points, but also look at the areas that might need improving. So it gives you a balanced overview. And this is something that I do a lot when I'm delivering coping strategy sessions. It's okay to think that way, but don't be overcritical. Don't put too much demand or burden on yourself, because when you're in that mindset, if you think that, well, I've achieved this, so I need to do better tomorrow, and then the next day you need to do even better, it very quickly becomes unsustainable. So then you need to go, right, what is sustainable? What level works for me, but also works for my employer? And you work towards that. Nobody expects you to improve even though that's professional development. From a work point of view, it's unsustainable to actually think like that. And this is where the reframing the negative thoughts comes into it, and about acknowledging what you're doing well as looking at things, areas that might need improving. Okay, thanks, Gabby. Time management. So the workplace strategies are use visual timers, reminders, and task chunking. So the visual timers, like I said before, the concept of passing time. It's really, really easy to lose the concept of passing. How much time has actually passed? How long is it taking me to do a task? So setting reminders. Task chunking. So instead of thinking about the whole task, put small targets in place. So the small targets are like a small achievable tasks that are measurable and timely, so that you're setting yourself up to succeed. You're setting yourself up to complete tasks in a timely manner, instead of thinking, always looking at the big picture and this needs to be done, because again, it very quickly develops into overperformance. Body doubling. Absolutely. Work alongside a colleague, in person or virtually, to stay focused. Have regular catch-ups, have team meetings, right? What we're doing, what needs to be achieved, so you can keep that kind of focus. Flexible routines, adjust your work hours or environments to fit your rhythm. So I have an example of this one in action. So we're recently working with a guy who, because of the time anxiety he experiences, and because he experiences insomnia, so he's not very productive in what you would call the mainstream hours, the regular hours of work, so 9 to 5. But so, well, okay, when are you more creative? And actually, he's more creative late afternoon going into the evening. So he's saying, okay, let's not think about it from an archaic point of view. Let's think about it from your creative point of view. When do we get the best out of you? But more importantly, when do you feel more creative so that you can focus on the task? All it meant for him was just reshuffling his hours. So he worked in the afternoons because he really struggled in the mornings. So again, thinking about autonomy and think about flexible working, that allows you to do the job in the time that you want to do it, because you're setting everybody up to win then. And then we come into communication. So ask for clarity or written follow-up instructions when needed. Yeah, if my boss says to me, Michael, can you go and do A, B, and C, and then work with Johnny? I'm going, who's Johnny? I would have forgotten the first 3 instructions, and when I don't even know who this guy is. So I've lost a lot of information. So what I might say is okay, can you just send us an email just to confirm what you've said there, so that I have that follow-up, that because I don't have a very good memory. So I'll just say, can you just follow it up so I don't forget, so I know exactly what you're talking about. And never ever be afraid to ask for a follow-up. Sometimes we need the written instruction, sometimes we need verbal instruction, sometimes we need presentation, sometimes we need to be shown a visual demonstration of what we need to be doing. And that's fine. We all learn and we all take information in very different ways. Okay, thanks, Gabby. So follow more with the workplace strategies, so mindfulness and relaxation. Try 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 grounding during stressful calls. So for an example, when your inbox floods, pause, take 3 deep breaths before replying. Because if you stay in that mindset, it's just going to build and build and build. And so when we use the grounding techniques, it is about resetting the senses. It's about going, you know what, I need to remove myself. Because my senses are becoming a bit overwhelmed, I need to ground myself. So I need to remove myself, get a bit of fresh air, whatever it means to you, and then come back in. Because when you're in an emotional state, you don't think very clearly. All becomes a little bit overwhelming, and then you just say, you know what, I just need to get out of here. And this is how people lose jobs as well. This is how people find sustaining employment really, really difficult, because They're staying in the moment. They're just trying to crack on and get it done, get it done, get it done. And you go, no, what? Take a break. Catch your breath here. It's fine. And it's about acknowledging that it's okay to take a break. It's okay to catch your breath. Okay. Time and energy management. Break tasks into 25-minute sprints. It's called a Pomodoro method. So when juggling multiple projects, focus on one task fully for 25 minutes, then rest. Don't think you have to juggle all these balls at once, small sprints. So stay focused for 25 minutes and give yourself a break. If you stay focused for beyond the 25 minutes, and the longer it goes on, the more exhausted you become. You get completely burnt out and exhausted, and you're just not functioning anymore. So it's much better to stay focused for a short period of time and give yourself a break. Have a cup of tea. That's what I do in the workplace. I say, you know what? I'm having a cup of coffee. I need a break. It's not my contract, but guess what? I do it. And there's nothing wrong with looking after yourself. Um, Positive thinking, reframe the negative thoughts. I can't do this. I'll handle it step by step. So when feedback feels harsh, treat it as guidance for growth. So when we get, particularly saying, when we're developing, we might get negative feedback. So we say, you know what, you've done okay, but if you've done it a different way, it might be a bit better. So you always think about the motivation of why that feedback's there to start with. If the motivation is just to criticize and go, what? Well, that's not very good. Yeah, it's an opinion, but you're not helping us. So, okay. But if this is okay, but if we did it this way, it could be a bit better. That's helpful. So it's about, first thing is, why is it there to start with? What's the motivation? And the second thing is, when nobody likes negative feedback. I would struggle to think of anybody that actually enjoyed receiving negative feedback because it feels personal, and it's emotional. The emotional response is, oh my God, I'm rubbish at this. This person doesn't like me. Then you go, allow yourself to go through a cycle of emotion. Process that emotion, then come out the other side and then go, okay, let's think logically. What have you said? Look at it and look at it with fair balance and go, yeah, okay, I see what you mean by that. How can you help me do that better? Always think about the mindset you're in and why you're receiving the feedback. Don't think it's criticism as an attack. It's not. It's to help you develop. Okay, but you will feel emotional at the start of it. Everybody does. And then social connection, build the workplace support networks, create a quick daily check-in with a colleague to share your wins or struggles. And you know what? It's just talking like shop without talking to a manager, anything like just talking to yourself. Oh, is this the way you understood that? This is what I'm doing. Are you doing it the same way? Sharing good practice, sharing thoughts, and building relationships up in the workplace. Okay, thanks, Gabby. So examples, an employee with ADHD uses a color-coded calendar and music to stay in the flow. A designer on the autism spectrum requires clear task instructions and quiet workspaces. And a dyslexic team member uses text-to-speak tools for reports. Each person's strategy supports productivity and calm. So as you can see, it means something very different to every single person. And all of those things there, would arguably be a reasonable adjustment. The text-to-speak tools, there's access to work grant that can get funding for specialist equipment, but the help and support is there. Never ever feel you're alone. Never ever feel you have to sort of go along with it just because that's what everybody else is doing. Absolutely not. It's about identifying the things that make the workplace more accessible and more sustainable whilst feeding in to your strengths and what you have to offer. Okay, thanks, Gabby. And then the create an inclusive culture, encourage openness about different work styles, offer sensory-friendly meeting spaces, normalize flexible breaks and focus time, and celebrate unique strengths and perspectives. Okay, Gabby. And this is just a bit of a Wellbeing Toolkit. Don't need to go into lots of detail about this because it is very, very different for every single person. Somebody might just need one bit of it, somebody else might need it all. And it doesn't matter. It's about what's right for you. So thinking about your daily grounding practice, 5 minute breathing or stretching, it's well versed that sort of fresh air, physical exercise is a great way of grounding, just clearing the head. But keep in mind about the self-reflection practices as well. How's my day gone? What's done well? How could I improve on that? And having that balance, because without that balance, we can be really self-critical. And believe me, I am my worst enemy. I am super critical to myself. I'm very harsh on myself, never to other people, but to myself, super critical. So I have to self-reflect because otherwise it just becomes unachievable and unsustainable. So that's why I always try to promote this because I know it's an area I struggle in. Personalize the workplace setup. Make it about you. It's your workspace. What works for you? Support network, peers, mentors, and leaders, and then have self-compassion. Self-compassion. It's okay to need different tools. It's a strength. And like me and my job many, many years ago when I was serving in the forces, I've always been a caring person. It was absolutely seen as a weakness when I was serving. Now it's my biggest strength. It is absolutely my biggest strength. And I'm really proud of how caring I am because I want to help people. But it's really important to be compassionate to yourself. Don't put yourself under the hammer here. Don't put yourself under the microscope. You're just trying to find your way. Okay. So that's the toolkit. And you use that for what you will. The takeaway, every brain is unique, and that diversity makes teams stronger. Coping strategies are not a one-size-fits-all. Discover what helps you thrive and share those insights to build a truly inclusive workplace. This is the really key thing here. It's about you, how are we going to get the best out of you? But that's also what makes a diverse team. If everybody thought the same, and if everybody did the job in the same way, we'd just be robots. I have colleagues, I do my job the way I think I should do it to my strengths, but colleagues might go, you know what, I couldn't do the job the way you do it. And that's absolutely fine. You play to your strengths. That's all we can do. So thank you, Gabby. And thank you. And then sort of any questions, please ask in the chat and I'll hand back to Gabby.
Yeah, thank you very much, Michael. Yeah, so any questions? I know we've got a few in there already, and there's been some good sort of ideas and discussions. But yeah, any questions? Just ask in the chat now. If there's anything that you don't want to discuss in the chat or you want to ask me afterwards, my email's up there. It's gabby.roberts@autimatic.co.uk. But yeah, we'll just let me see if I can. Oh, I'm showing a whiteboard now. I don't know why I'm doing that. There we go. Back to us. So yeah, so there's been a couple of questions. I know you were saying that quite a few places tend to ask for references before an interview now. So what I would say with that is obviously if someone's worried about that and they are in employment currently, you can always give a reference, either a character reference, so someone that's not in your current employment, or maybe a previous employment before that, but you can let them know that you can't give a reference from your current employer, obviously, if they don't know you're leaving. That's sort of a way to get around that, and they should understand that. And then Michael, do you want to take Tracy's question? She's just asked what step of the job application do you disclose and ask for reasonable adjustments for any sort of physical and mental health or anything else?
Yeah. So positive disclosure, it's a really personal thing. And so it comes under the Equality Act where an employer by law can't actually ask If you have a health condition, they literally can't ask it. It's protected by law, but more so, it's a really personal thing to do. So when you think about at what point do you disclose, I always think about, okay, make it relevant to the situation you're in. So if, say, you applied for a job and were invited to interview, like you could say, I could make a positive disclosure and just say, you know what, this is me. Could I have the questions in advance so I can prepare for the interview? Could I have an accompanied interview? Or could I have a work trial instead of an interview? And it really does, it is down to the employer to make the reasonable adjustment. But there is nothing wrong with asking for those things. If you feel you can go through an interview without any reasonable adjustments, then you can disclose when you have an offer of employment. You can disclose at application. So when you apply for a job online, do you consider you have a disability or long-term health condition? Tick yes. And then they say, right, are there any reasonable adjustments we can make? And then you make a positive disclosure and say, right, I've asked the employers for the questions in advance. And I did have one employer come back and say, well, sorry, no, that's not fair on the other applicants. I went, okay, then. So why don't you send the questions out to everybody? And then at least nobody is at a disadvantage. Everybody is sort of where they should be. It's the fact that the one person doesn't have the questions where they're at a disadvantage. So the employer agreed. He said, right, I'll just provide them to everybody. Then it's in the employer's mind it was fair, but also it was the fair in the mind of this applicant as well. But it's if you say wanted to get through the interview without the questions or without a reasonable adjustment, but okay, I now have like I say, an unconditional offer of employment, and then you can go into the workplace and say, right, this is me, I have autism, and this is how it affects me. Can I have these reasonable adjustments? The employer cannot turn around and say, I'm sorry, I'm going to rescind that job offer because you didn't disclose this. That would be breaking the law, because once you've disclosed a health condition, you are then protected by the Disability Discrimination Act as well, once you've disclosed. And you are only protected by it unless you disclose. So if you don't disclose, you're not protected by it because the employer didn't know. Once the employer knows, you are then protected. Okay, so it's very, very personal, and it would be wrong for me to say, well, do it pre-interview, do it post-interview. There's no right or wrong. It's when you feel comfortable. The one thing I would say, never disclose it in an interview. Because if you're having an interview and you're sitting thinking, oh, when do I say this to the employer? When do I say that I have this health condition? You're not thinking about the interview anymore. You're thinking about when you're going to disclose. So never ever in an interview, either before an interview or after. That would be my advice. I hope that helps.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Michael. So let me just have a look. I'm just looking through some other questions. So Alina, you're not sure how to answer the question, what can you do for me as a business? So again, I would refer back to, things like, what are your skills? Like, what have you wrote under key skills? What do you think you're strong in? What are your strengths? And use that in terms of, to sell yourself as such, as basically what you're doing. But to answer that question around what can you do for me as a business, you've got to think about it personally. And again, it'll be different depending what your strengths and skills are. Andy, in terms of the recordings, I'm just in the process of a back and forth with Microsoft at the minute, because there's been a problem with my email and the recording. So as soon as we get them, we're going to share them. We will share them on a couple of different platforms, and then anyone that's been on these sessions, they'll be in the invite from each session. You'll be able to access the recording that way as well if you've attended. But I'll let everyone know when we get the recording sorted for all the previous sessions. And then what we were talking about, what Michael was talking about disclosure, and that's in the next session, I think, as well, that we'll be going into that a bit more. And Josh has asked what the other 3 sessions were about. I'll get them and send you a list of what they were. And then once we've got the recordings, you'll be able to go back to them. But they were all around everything in these sessions. So we're doing 6 in total. around how to look for work and prioritize your well-being. There's just different categories under that. So we've already done sort of looking at job descriptions and identifying what's essential, what's desirable. We are then also going to talk about in a future session sort of interview tips and things like that. And then there's lots of stuff around sort of your well-being and mental health that we've previously discussed. So I'll send you a proper list of all three of those. I just need to go back and get the titles correct. Any other questions from anyone? We've had some good conversation on stuff that's worked for them. I think it was Alina that said a standing desk really worked for you. Also potentially recording something so you can refer back to it. You know, Michael, you were talking about asking for written. Some people may record it so they can listen back to it. That's a good solution as well. Ewan was saying that he struggled working from home when his computer was in his living room because he couldn't switch off, but then managed from friends' help to turn his bedroom into an office space. That's always good because you know you can shut the door, and then like Ewan was saying, it was probably looking at that desk and looking at that space. It makes it harder to shut off. But yeah, there's lots of different things you can do, like someone that I was speaking to was saying when they have all the apps on the phone, they find that difficult to switch off because then when they've clocked out of work, they'll go back and look at it on evenings and weekends and things like that. So maybe sometimes that's not a positive for some people, or you know, you have a rule where you can't go into those apps when you're not working, just to keep that sort of divide really between home and work, especially if you do work from home. And then also, I think Leanne was saying that you got some bad feedback, but you speak to your mentor and made some plans to make a comeback, as you've said. Yeah, sometimes it's still not nice, is it, to hear negatives, but sometimes you've just got to think of it as like it's constructive criticism, isn't it? It's not just a personal thing for you, but it's so you can improve your work moving forward, isn't it? Or improve whatever it is. Yeah, so Leanne's also said one company asked her in the interview if she needed reasonable adjustments, which put her on the spot. We'll go into this again. Next session is going to be interview tips and things, but one thing to avoid things like that in the future, the company were probably asking you for a positive reason to try and provide those adjustments. But one thing is you could always ask for sort of questions for interviews ahead of time so that you can feel prepared in those situations. Ewan, that's a very good rule. I need to start using that. When he goes to bed, his phone stays in the living room. That is a really good way of shutting off.
Yeah. It's such an important point, though, isn't it? And you know, particularly when you're starting a new role, it is so tempting just to have a sneak look and going, "Oh, am I missing anything here?" Because sometimes that fear of just missing some information, maybe preparing for, "Oh, if I miss something, what about tomorrow? What am I walking into tomorrow?" So it does take quite a bit of self-discipline to go, you know what? No, I am finished work. That phone's getting switched off. You know, this is my time. You're not being paid any extra to look at your phone at night. You're not being paid any extra to look at your laptop. And you're thinking about work as well. It's really important. Just go, more compartmentalize, say, no, this is my time. It's really important to have your time. And that exactly like Josh has just put, the boundaries are so important. Really set these boundaries. What the working day looks like in terms of working hours, that's autonomy. That's feeding into your creativity. But you can't start work at, say, 9 o'clock in the morning and still be on your laptop at 10 o'clock at night. Absolutely not. It's way too much overperformance, burnout, but certainly manage your time skills. But absolutely set the boundaries, set your own personal boundaries, manage your expectation, and that'll help the employer to manage your expectations as well. So making sure that, you have a clear mindset and just say, oh, don't worry about tomorrow. Tomorrow will come. So it's important that you have your time to switch off, to enjoy your family time, because if very quickly impacts on your personal life as well. And you really don't want that. You have to have the balance. Also picking up on the interview, asking for reasonable adjustments during an interview. The only thing I think up on there is the employees actually picked up on something. Maybe they picked up on anxiety or something like that. They might have been coming from a good place. Not the best place in the world to ask somebody if they want a reasonable adjustment during an interview, because it very much puts you on the spot. So if you feel you do need an adjustment, I would certainly say do it before an interview, particularly when you've made a positive disclosure statement. And I think the other one I was going to pick up on was reacting to feedback and having a formal plan. So when you're thinking about making a positive disclosure, so say you made a disclosure and you got offered employment, then it should be a documented conversation. It should be employer sitting down. Okay, let's talk about your conditions. Let's talk about how it impacts on you. How can we as an employer help you? So to document a conversation and then sort of go, okay, let's have a work adjustment plan. So put this conversation into a record and say there's a work adjustment plan in place here and have it reviewed. It's not a one fit fits all. It's not one document. It's a review because needs change all the time. So something that worked to begin with might not be relevant anymore because duties have changed. You might not actually need it, but you might need something else. So it should always be a recorded conversation and something that's reviewed as well. So because it's very, very easy for it to be forgotten. Not intentionally, but sometimes work gets in the way and employers forget about them. So there should be a regular review of the adjustments in the work adjustment plan as well. But really good point about it having a formal plan in place. Okay, thanks, Gabby. I think I've covered everything else, and I apologise if I've missed anything.
Yeah, I think so. So I think Alina's just asked, which is probably one for me. So thinking that the CV that I've gone through is more of a classic traditional CV. Is there anything else? So she said about one-page CV or video CD. So I would say a one-page CV is still traditional, really. I always say we always say a CV really should be 1 to 2 pages anyway. Video CVs. Now I have heard bits of these before. I was hearing bits about these a few years ago, and I never really received any myself when I was in recruitment and things. I think they could be great, but the thing with a sort of 1 to 2 page written Word PDF document, traditional, as we would say, is that it's standardized. Everybody uses that format. So with it being standardized, it's easy to send out to anyone and everyone. Whereas with the video, I think it would depend what you were applying for, really. Some industries, some roles will be more traditional. Some won't be as sort of forward moving or technical as others. So I think it depends. I think it could be great in some situations, and then particular roles it might not be the best for. Like for example, if it was something within like law or finance, they are known really to be more traditional as an industry. Whereas if you were going for something like, social media or marketing or something, a video CV may be really useful. So I think it would depend with that, just because it's not as standardized and popular yet. But yeah, I've got a couple of minutes. If there's any last questions, pop them in the chat. Otherwise, I will wait to hear from anyone via email. But thank you very much for attending. Again, it's nice to see some repeat faces. The next session we are thinking will be, I think it's 4th of December, but again, we'll send an email out to everyone in our database. It'll be on LinkedIn. We'll be advertising it as usual. But yeah, it's great to see so many people attend. Thank you very much. Thank you to those that have thought it's useful. I will send out a feedback form as well. I think I sent it out last time, but just to get any feedback so we can improve future sessions. If there's anything you think that we could include that would be better, that would be beneficial for next time, anything that you thought's not worked, yeah, we're here for constructive criticism as well, as we want to make these sessions as useful for everybody moving forward. But yeah, we've got one in December. We won't be doing one in January because it'll be beginning of the year, straight after Christmas. So the last one in this session then will be beginning of February. And then we'll be looking at covering new topics. But yeah, thank you very much, everyone. We'll finish there and hopefully we'll see you all next time. Thanks, Michael.
Okay. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, Gabby.